Salamat siang, welcome back into the channel and season number 4 of the FC Bekasi CIty save. If you've been with me for the journey so far, you would have seen in season number 3 we had bolstered our squad ready for our first taste of Champions League football. We would only get to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, but it wasn't all doom and gloom. We would go on to win the Indonesian Cup, and we would follow that up by winning another Liga 1 title, meaning we were champions of Indonesia once again. In season number 4, we are firmly going to have another crack at the Champions League, and I think we are going to have a fantastic league campaign too. To kick the episode off, we're going to go back to the beginning of season number 4. That means it's the 1st of June 2027. We have not long been crowned Indonesian champions for the second time. We're going to show you everything that we do in the preparation for season number 4, starting off by looking at the club info page. You can see we are still a 1.5-star national reputation team with 3-star OK finances. We have 2-star training facility and 2-star youth facility at this point in the save. Our key players: Chihiro Konagoya is still our club captain. Mr. Reliable has never let me down, and he's the man that I'm going to put in charge of lifting as many trophies as he can get his hands on. The key player in the save at the moment is Owen Silva, 20-year-old American who came to us a couple of seasons ago and has really started to come into his own. He's developing nicely, and I do have a few concerns that we might not be able to hold him for too much longer, just like with Sean Wagner, but hopefully he will stick around with us till the end. And our hot prospect for this season is Mohamed Pernawan. He has just come to the club in our most recent youth intake, and he's a player that we're going to look to develop for the future, and I think he could become a star. Looking at the club finances then, we have £1.3 million in the bank. We have £338,000 as a transfer budget. We have a wage budget of £19,778. We are only spending £12,000. We do have £17,000 committed as spending for the next season though. So with the money that we have in the bank, we probably need to spend it wisely and work within our budgets. And that is exactly what we would do. We know that we need to strengthen the squad to have another run at the Champions League and also defend our Liga 1 title. So we would go out and sign some free transfers that would help us to get some quality into the team and also spend a little bit of cash. Let's look at the players that we would bring in. So the first player we brought in was Juni Antara. He is a player that comes to us from Bali United on a free transfer. At the age of 32, he's not going to get any better, but we have a relatively young locker room now, and we need a player with a bit of a sensible head who can go in and start to help those younger players to really come out of their shells. And Juni Antara, as a full Indonesian international, is a player that I think can fit that role. The next player that we brought in also fits that model of experienced player. After we lost Sean Wagner at the end of last season, we needed somebody to score goals, and with Ezra Walian being able to play in a number of positions, we know we can shift him around the formation, and hopefully we can start to see replication of what Sean Wagner was doing in terms of goals from Ezra Walian. The next player that we brought in was Max Christoffel, another player who can play in a number of positions, both as a left-back, centre-back or a defensive midfielder, another Indonesian international, and another player who comes in at the age of 23, but is already experienced of playing in bigger leagues, having been at Feyenoord and Willem II in Holland. The next player that we brought in was Emmanuel Nimley. We went down the same path that we did for Sean Wagner and for Owen Silva and also Mike Tenari, and we went back to America to look at the amateur leagues. Now we found a player called Emmanuel Nimley. He's a goalkeeper. We found him at Ventura County and we picked him up because he looked interesting. Straight away we noticed that we needed a new goalkeeper going into the season, with our former number 1 goalkeeper not really getting any better, and we look in the long term to try and replace him. And Emmanuel Nimley was the one that fitted the bill. He comes to us as a 20-year-old and he will only get better as the game goes on. The final player that we would sign would be a player called Eberth. He's the only player that we spent money on, £15,000 to be exact. And he is a player that once again is looking to replicate the goals that Sean Wagner has vacated by leaving the team. And he comes to us from San Bernardo in Brazil. He's also played for some bigger clubs, Goiás and Coritiba. So we know that the quality is there. Just can we get the best out of him? Fingers crossed we can, because I think he's a player that will suit our team down to the ground. So with that being said, those are the transfers that we did, the business that we have bought in. We only spent £15,000 to try and keep those budgets balanced, but I think now the squad is looking quite bolstered and we are looking forward to going into the first games of Season 4. Season 4 would continue on from exactly where we left off last season. The team would come back from pre-season in fine form, and thanks to Christopher, Kohler and Maciel, we would win our opening fixture against Arema 4-0. That game, though, looked like it was just a tune-up match as we really hit our stride in the second game of the season. We would completely have our own way with Gresik United as we unleashed a 9-1 victory to stamp our mark early. Goals from Christopher, Silva, Sutopo, Kohler and Eberth made sure that we had 6 points from 6. In the third game, things would go absolutely crazy, as for some reason both defences decided they would just have a day off and stayed at home. This would lead to an end-to-end affair with Bayankara as we fought hard to outbattle them in a 4-3 victory thanks to 4 goals from Ezra Walian. After the first 11 league games of the season, we would be sitting pretty at the top of Liga 1 once again. With those 11 games, we would play 11, win 10, draw just once, and would be undefeated in the first 11 games. We would have a goal difference of 29, we would have 31 points from those 11 games, we would have a lead over the second place team, which is PSM, of 3 points. Further behind them, we had already built up a 7-point lead over PSS. In terms of some of the stats for the league, Ezra Walian would be our top goal scorer at this point with 8 goals, getting 4 in a single game. He would also have 3 Player of the Match awards, and Nimley would hit the ground running as our new goalkeeper would have 6 clean sheets after 11 games. If we look at the other competitions, we can see the Champions League has now been drawn, and we were put in a group with Incheon from Korea, Shanghai Port from China, and Port from Hong Kong. This looks like a difficult group, but with the players that we have added into the squad in the transfer window, I really believe that we are going to have a great shot of qualifying, whether that be in second place, or I actually think we have a great chance of winning this group. As for the Indonesian Cup, that will start on the 27th of October. So for the time being, we're going to turn our attention to the Champions League. In the first Champions League game of that group, we would play against Shanghai Port. With the Chinese champions visiting the Patriot Stadium, we would continue our impressive form as we blow them away in a fantastic 3-1 win thanks to goals from Walian, Christopher and Owen Silva. After 20 Liga 1 games, you can see there is a bit of a pattern emerging as we are still sat top of Liga 1 and we are now building a commanding lead. After the first 20 games, we have won 19 of those. We have drawn just once. We have still yet to taste defeat in Liga 1. We have a goal difference of 54 and 58 points. And more importantly for us, we now have opened up a 14-point gap to Persija, who have leapfrogged PSM into second place. Looking at some of the stats from the league, Owen Silva is now our leading goal scorer with 14 goals. He also has our highest average rating with 7.61. Dwi Abbas has 9 assists on the season. Owen Silva has 5 Player of the Match awards and Ezra Walian has 4. And Nimley is going to be the find of the season, surely. 10 clean sheets from his first 20 games, and he is really on a roll as our number 1 goalkeeper. In terms of the other competitions, we have now played 4 games in the Champions League, and it's the same story there. We are topping the group, played 4, won 4, goal difference of 8, and 12 points means we have a 5-point gap over Shanghai Port, who are in second. In the Indonesian Cup, we have been drawn against PSGC as we are in the second round of the Indonesian Cup. Back into league action now, and we are showing absolutely no signs of slowing down whatsoever. The latest victims at the Patriot Stadium would be PSIS, who we shot down in a 5-0 clinical victory thanks to goals from Maciel, Silva and Christopher. We would follow that up with an equally impressive win against Arema. They would also visit the Patriot Stadium and be blown away. This time it would be a 4-1 scoreline as we pick up 3 more points thanks to Kola, Ramdani, Silva and Sotopo. And that means after 24 league games, we still find ourselves sat top of the pile in Liga 1, as we have now played 24, won 21, drawn 3, are still undefeated as we eye up that invincible season with just 10 league games to go. We have a goal difference of 58 and 66 points, building up a lead over PSM, who have leapfrogged back into second place, where they have 53 points, and we have that 13-point cushion going into those last 10 games. Looking at some of the stats in the league, Owen Silva, 14 league goals, Eberth, 7.6 average rating, Dwi Abbas has 9 assists still. Owen Silva has 5 Player of the Match awards, and Nimley, still impressive as ever, 24 games, 11 clean sheets for him. In terms of the other competitions, we would go and win our Champions League group as group winners. We would be rewarded with a second round tie against Vissel Kobe, and in the Indonesian Cup we would make it through to the semi-finals, where we would play a 2-legged game against Dewey United. But we are turning our attention back to the Champions League once again. And in that second round tie, we would welcome the champions of Japan to the Patriot Stadium first. We would look to build ourselves an advantage in the tie, and we would play some brilliant football and win the first leg 4-2 thanks to goals from Ezra Walian, Dwi Abbas and Croquet. In the return leg though, things would be far more difficult once we were in Japan. We had to decide whether to try and defend our lead, and that left us with the problem of not trying to overcommit players. This led to a nervy performance where we would lose 3-2 on the day, but progress 6-5 on aggregate. In the quarterfinals, we would be paired off against the champions of Thailand, as we face off against Buriram United. With the first leg being at home, we would once again look to build a lead, and that is exactly what we did. We would have a 3-1 victory thanks to goals from Ramdani, Kola and Maciel. In the second leg, we once again had the dilemma of not overcommitting. This time though, we were strong. We would leave Thailand with a 1-1 draw and a place in the semi-finals of the Champions League. So with our place in the semi-final of the Champions League guaranteed, let's quickly turn our attention back to the league form. So the league phase of Liga 1 is now complete, and we would finish top of the league phase, playing 34, winning 28, drawing 5 and agonisingly only losing once. That one defeat would come at the hands of Persib at home in a 4-3 defeat. We would finish with 74 goal difference and 89 points, meaning that we would win the league phase by 23 points. But as we know, in Indonesia, the league phase is nice to win, but it all comes down to the playoffs as to whether we are going to be crowned champions. Looking at some of the stats across the season then, Owen Silva, 19 goals. He also would be our leading average rated player with 7.48. Dwi Abbas, 7.46. In terms of assists, Dwi Abbas would get 12. Owen Silva, 7 Player of the Match awards, and Nimley would have a very impressive first season. 15 clean sheets from a possible 34 games. So as we know, we are in the semi-finals of the Champions League. We would be drawn against Kashiwa Reysol, and we're going to look at that in just a second. We are also into the semi-finals of the Indonesian Cup, where we would play against Dewey United. But we are now going to have a crazy run of games, starting off with the Champions League semi-final. The next couple of weeks would see a crazy run of games for the club. It all kicked off with the home leg of the Champions League semi-final. We welcomed Kashiwa Reysol to the Patriot Stadium and promptly beat them 2-0 thanks to goals from Eberth and Owen Silva. In the away leg, it was as it has been in this competition. We would defend our lead with our lives, as we would get a massive 1-1 draw in Japan, managed to book our place in the Champions League final for the very first time. Off the back of that Champions League semi-final second leg, we were then thrown straight into a 2-legged Indonesian Cup final against PSS. In the first leg, we would do all the damage, as we put up a dominant display to run out 4-1 winners with goals from Owen Silva, Ezra Walian and KO Maciel. Despite our big lead from the first leg, there was no sitting back in the return fixture. We would attack from the get-go and walk away with a 2-0 victory and a 6-1 aggregate score as once again we become Indonesian Cup winners. Fresh off of winning the Indonesian Cup, the next game is where the stakes were really beginning to raise. We would walk into the first leg of the Champions League final with a lot of confidence. Sadly for us though, despite our best efforts, the bubble would burst as we would be defeated 4-2 in the first leg of the Champions League final. With us chasing Al Ittihad's lead from the first leg, we had nothing to lose in the second. We would come out all guns blazing, but sadly for us, it was not going to be enough as we lose 2-0 on the day and 6-2 on aggregate, and our Champions League hopes die in the final. After the Champions League heartbreak, we had to turn our attentions back to the domestic league as we dust ourselves down for the first leg of the playoff final. Luckily, there would be no Champions League hangover as we were back to our best, beating PSS 3-1 thanks to goals from Ethan Kohler and Ezra Walian. With our first leg victory, we were in a strong position in the tie and could play the second leg with ease. This would lead to a comfortable 2-0 victory in the second leg, an aggregate score of 5-1, and that means that once again we have become the champions of Indonesian football. So with all the on-field action now complete, the last thing as always to do is look at the season review. You can see our 2 trophies from the season proudly on display there, our Liga 1 title and our Indonesian Cup trophy too. Let's kick things off by looking at the new players this season. So, signing of the season goes to Ezra Walian. He's a player at the age of 30 who was brought in to be a wise head in a young dressing room, and he has played some fantastic football. 36 starts, 34 goals, 3 assists and a 7.31 average rating. The other striker to come in was Eberth from Sao Bernardo in Brazil. 25 appearances, 19 goals, 2 assists. Max Christoffel is a player that came to us from Willem Drey in Holland. Played 53 times, 15 goals, 19 assists and a 7.19 average rating. Juni Antara was another player with a wise head in a young locker room. 32-year-old fullback, managed to make 56 appearances in total, 4 goals and 10 assists. He actually played the role of mentor fantastically across the season. Player that I think probably would have got my nod for player of the season or signing of the season was Emmanuel Nimley. We signed him from the American Amateur Leagues, Ventura County. Played 58 games across the season and was absolutely immense in goal, firmly cementing him as our number 1 goalkeeper. The next player to come in was Jim Croker. We didn't actually cover this one at the start of the season. He came in later. We needed another striker just to bolster us up in the position. He would play 25 times, 14 goals and 4 assists. Looking at the season results then, so we would win the league phase of the Liga 1 by 22 points in the end from PSS. We would go on that run where we almost went the entire season invincible. 1 defeat in a 4-3 loss at home. In the Champions League, here is our run to the final. You can see that we didn't play well enough in the final to win the game, and we did ourselves no injustice across the course of the competition. Just couldn't get over the line when it mattered the most. And this is our run to the Indonesian Cup, resulting in that 6-1 victory in the 2-legged final. Looking then at some moments to remember, the biggest win of the season was the 9-1 victory against Gresik United. A 2-0 victory against Port was our match to remember in the Champions League. And goal of the season would go to Ramdhani with a top draw goal from our left back, Ramdhani, as he hits a fierce effort from 20 metres out. In terms of our finances, in terms of the club reputation actually, we were a 1.5-star national reputation team. We have now moved up to a 2-star team. We are doing no new sponsorship deals across the season. Sponsorship is up, broadcast revenue is up, corporate and hospitality is up, competition prize money is also up, thanks to the Champions League run, and Matchday commercial and retail is also up. We sold £2,350 worth of merchandise with 102 shirts sold. Walian is clearly our most popular player. Silva, Christopher, Eberth and Kohler also shifting some shirts. Looking at our lineup across the season, this is probably about right, but we did shift away from the 4-3-3 towards the end of the season. We went to a 4-2-3-1, but Nimli, Christopher, Rinaldi, Topo and Abbas, Hidayat, Kanagaya, Kohler, Ko Maciel, Owen Silva and Walian in the 4-3-3 probably would have been right had we have seen that out to the end. So in terms of the awards, no manager of the season this year, but we did win manager of the month for July, September, October and March. In terms of the players, Owen Silva, highest average rating. Dwi Abbas, young player of the season. Signing of the season went to Ezra Walian. Ramdani with goal of the season. Walian had 34 goals. Abbas 21 assists. Walian 10 player of the match awards. Dwi Abbas 7.4 highest average rating. And then record breakers, most goals in a game by Ezra Walian. He also had that for a league match. Most clean sheets in a season with 24 across the entire season. Manuel Nimli has been immense. Kanagoya now has the most league appearances by a player for the club with 129. Most goals by a player is Owen Silva with 54. Our oldest player this season was Johnny Antara with an age of 32 years, 349 days. He also took the crown of being the oldest goal scorer for the club. So, history in the making. We motored clear of the rivals in the middle of the season, but it wasn't enough to turn their challenge into victory. Okay, that's crazy, considering we have literally won the league. Not too sure what this guy here, Sayaril Setayawan, is talking about, because we did win. Maybe he's talking about the Champions League, but if it's the league, definitely doesn't know what he's talking about. And here again, trendy pick for the title, but they fell short at the end, even though we won the league. Game's broken at this point, not too sure what's going on there. But still, we are now record breakers as we finished with 89 points in League 1 to set a new club record. We did win the league with 16 clean sheets for Emmanuel Nimli in goal. And Owen Silva was named Indonesian League 1 Player of the Year. So quickly, a few things to look at here. Let's go to the club finances. Going into the new season, we have £2.6 million in the bank. Transfer budget of £216,000. We have a £34,000 wage budget with £18,000 that being spent. In terms of the squad, we have a decent sized squad now. Not too sure if there's too many more players we will add to that as we go forwards. I think we are looking at certainly a league winning squad for next season, but that Champions League is the one that we really want. So if you've enjoyed today's episode and you are enjoying the series in general, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the other content that is coming your way on the channel. But for this one, I'm going to leave it there. Big thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next episode very soon.